Welcome everyone, and congratulations to you all for making it to your son's senior year. So quick round of applause. A little bit more, please. All right, we have a lot of folks with us on Zoom tonight. Welcome to everyone at home, and thank you all so much for making it here. It may feel a little bit weird to be in person again, but we are so grateful for your time on this Thursday evening. So before we get started with introductions, okay. Just a couple of housekeeping things. One is that the bathrooms are in the far rear here, both men and women. Also, we ask that you please hold your questions until the end so that we can get through all the material. That way, if you truly don't have any questions after we present, wow. But you're free to leave, and then we do recommend staying for the Q&A if you can. But we hope to get you out of here on time because, again, it's a Thursday night. We're probably all pretty tired. The slides aren't advancing for some reason. So to start, my name is Megan Fraker. I am the Director of College Counseling. If your son was on Miss Quinn's caseload, for the most part, that means there are 5 students who moved to Miss Petty, but that means that I am your son's college counselor. And I look forward to meeting all of you. I hope you will come up and say hello after the presentation if you have time.
I am Pam Petty. It's my second year here at Xavier, but I've been involved in college counseling since actually my 10th admission cycle. And I'm happy to be here with all of you tonight.
I'm Jimmy Buckley. I am class of 2013. I'm an alum. It's good to see a lot of you guys. This is year 4 in the college counseling world, year 5 at Xavier. So if I have your son, I'm very happy to be working with you guys. If I don't, still happy to see you guys, still happy to be here.
I am Scott Peroga. I'm the assistant for the college counselors. I probably see you.
And Mr. Gibbons will be up in a bit and he'll introduce himself, but you all met him at the door. Tonight is going to feel like a lot of information, right? You're going to probably get more information than you've received before. We ask that you take it in stride. We are here to support, not stress. We believe that having access to the information will lead to the best outcome. And so also we want you to know you may be taking pictures of the slides. You can do that. Please make sure I'm not in the picture. But we're also going to send out the slides tomorrow, and we're going to send out a recording. So really just be here, be present, and let's enjoy this moment together. I'm going to turn it over to Miss Petty. Yes, it's finally working.
Fantastic. Hello. So how many people are doing this for the first time? So a lot of first, that's what usually you get at the meetings, right? The first timers. So I am the only person in this room who is completely finished with college. I have 2 sons, they've applied, they've attended, and they've graduated. So I'm here to tell you, like, it all works out. But this process really marks the beginning of a huge transition in your relationship with your son. It's really, your role will be changing from sort of managing their life to becoming more of an advisor. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process that takes years and years, but it really does sort of start now. Okay. Okay, sorry, my little notes are in the wrong order. So for the college process, your son should be the one driving the bus. And, you know, we understand, believe me, like everyone is where they are, everyone's in a different place. But, you know, the general idea is that they are running this process and owning this process. And, you know, part of the reason for that is to be really ready to succeed in college, you have to start developing some of the muscles that allow you to be accountable for your own life, to take responsibility, the things that Xavier really tries to instill, like now is when the fruit of all of this comes to bear. So while he's in the driver's seat, you are kind of in the passenger seat, but really in the beginning, your hand is like on the wheel with them because they're still young, they don't know, but you're trying to ask questions to help them discern what their preferences are. You know, when you visit a school, like, what did you like about this school? Could you see yourself here? Did you like the fact that it was big? Did it feel too small? And, you know, things to let them start owning the process a little bit more. You know, things like time management and managing risk and all of those things are hugely important. Once you drop them off next August, you want to know that they've really built some of those skills. So as you are embarking on this process, it's really important not to let it take over your entire family life. And it's stressful, and it's stressful for them, and it's stressful for you too. Are they doing enough? Have they written their essay? Are they keeping up with what everybody else is doing? And it's hard for everyone. And when it becomes the only thing that ever is discussed at home, that's not a good thing. And so we really recommend having a set time when we talk about college. So when your son walks in the room, he's not always afraid that there's going to be an ambush about, like, did you talk to your counselor? Did you work on your essay? Have you done your activities? And it's just really nice for them to know, you know, whenever it is, Thursday at dinner or over the weekend, we're going to sit down and have time that we really focus on talking about this. And during other times, we live our family life. The other thing is, everyone is in a different place, and there are kids who are going to apply, you know, in October. There are some guys who won't be ready yet, and it's okay. Like, we are going to meet your son where he is and help him through the process. So don't despair when you hear stories of, well, this guy's done and he's already into school. It's really the beginning of, you know, everyone kind of ends up in their own lane, and you just have to kind of stay in your game and play that way. As of now, and this is not meant to stress you out at all, when my oldest son went to kindergarten, we had a meeting like this right before the first day of school. And the kindergarten teachers got up and said, you know, these are the kindergarten readiness skills that your children should have. And my son wasn't doing some of them. And I was devastated. And then at the end of the talk, they said, but don't worry, we meet you where you are. And so, you know, that's a huge part of what we want you to know. We will meet you where you are. However, some of the things, and we've gone over all of this last year in college guidance, we continue this year, to be familiar with Naviance. Is everyone pretty much aware of Naviance? I encourage you to use it. It's a wonderful tool. A college list of some sort. I wouldn't expect it to be final, but definitely, you know, something that's starting to feel like the list. Having done some visiting and researching, the essay, which I think at this moment in time is the most stressful thing. I mean, most of the guys, when I see them, are, you know, either not happy with what they have or they don't know what to write. And we're here to help. And it all gets done. Teacher recommendations, hopefully those have been already requested. If not, you know, we're definitely on the guides about you need to go ahead and do that. And then getting started with the Common App. We've had accounts open for everyone last year, so everyone should have a Common App login. You know, I would suggest there's a bunch of really easy sections in the beginning, the family section, the demographic section. That is something that can be done quickly and it feels like something is happening. So I would suggest, like, if you haven't done that yet, maybe encourage your sons to sit with you and get some of that stuff entered so they'll feel like they're really moving along in the process. Anyway, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gibbons, who's going to get into some more nitty gritty. I'm going to do this for you.
Thank you, Ms. Petty. Good evening, everyone. I saw most of you at the front door. I'm Mr. Gibbons, Tom Gibbons. This is my 24th year at Xavier. I think I've been doing college guidance for 10 of them, among other things that I've thrown my hat into the ring for. And this is my favoriteest of all the jobs. So looking forward to working with your sons, continuing to work with your sons. So what are we doing with them? We started college group guidance in February of their junior year. And we really went through big picture stuff with them more than anything else. We did some work with Naviance. We talked about financial aid. We had them try to help them understand what they should look for, questions they should ask when they go on tours, that they should visit, that they should visit with you, that they should include you in the process. All right, and that all happens in group, where we have individual conversations with them as well. Not everything is private and confidential, but I think when it does come down to a college list, some people are very particular about being private with that. And whatever works for your kid, whatever works for you, again, we will meet you where you are and where he is. In group guidance this year, we're doing the actual work that is involved in the college application process. Group one of our main goals, it's a very simple thing, but it actually takes a while to do correctly. We have them waive their right to access their information that we send, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. We have them give us permission to send their documents along with the records release form that we sent you last year to complete for you to sign and your son to sign. We have to do that formally through their Common App, and we show them how to do that correctly, because if you make a mistake there, it's hard to fix. So we do that in group. We match up their Naviance accounts and their Common App accounts, so there's a seamless transition of sending their documents, their school documents, when the time comes after they've requested their transcripts. That's how we get the school information to the colleges and correctly match it up with your son's Common App account. Again, not very exciting stuff, but things that are necessary to do. Going forward, we're going to help them build and develop and hopefully fine tune their lists of schools they'll be applying to. We do work specifically on their applications, usually the Common App, maybe the CUNY app and SUNY app a little further in. We are there just really as a resource. So different kids are going to be at different places in the process. We'll do some common work in group, but what I tell them is if they come to every group, don't miss group, and you will be much more comfortable, feel much more confident, and have an idea of what you need to do while you're doing the work at the same time. So it's a big part of what we do. Our doors are always open, but to students and to parents at any time, we can have a meeting, but a lot of the work gets done in group, and we'll meet with them through the fall. When it comes to individual appointments, the very beginning of the year is a little hectic. A lot of guys like to pop in, hey, you free? Like, I'm free, and we'll have a meeting. I personally like to schedule a meeting with them, so there's a little bit more discipline involved and regimented structure for them to be organized, for me to be organized, but we'll always take individual appointments. And if you'd like to have a conversation with any of us, give us a call, send us an email, and we'll set something up, whether virtual or in person, whatever works for you. We're gonna have some application workshop days where the kids can either come in early before school starts or stay later. And they'll have the opportunity to sit with us and really just take care of whatever work they need to do, whether it's the actual application, work on their essay, work on some of the supplemental questions, whatever they need, we'll meet them where they are again, and we'll get that done with them, and we'll be able to really alleviate fears and have them give them the opportunity to ask specific questions. This is a very big part of a great part of what we're able to do here. Throughout the fall, and it began this week in earnest, we'll have college admissions reps from over 100 schools come in to meet with small groups of our students. Your sons have been briefed in group guidance and sent many notices on the process and practice on how to sign up for those meetings. And we ask that if they sign up, they show up. We need them to sign up a day before the meeting, but they can do that through Naviance. It's a simple process. We have meetings scheduled from tomorrow through November. All right. And if you're interested in a school in California, in the Midwest, in the South, in the far northern regions, or even if you're so busy with your sport and your senior year activities and whatever else you have to do with your family, sometimes it's hard to get out and actually step on campus if you've yet to do so. If you want to make that connection with a college, that personal connection, more likely than not, with the admissions rep who will actually be reading your son's application, they need to attend those meetings. All right. What I would suggest is when you go home, hey, show me the college meetings you've signed up for. Well, what about this one? You know, and it's not a naggy thing. It's really a good way to stay involved in their college process, to have an idea of who's coming to visit us and your son, and if they've taken the initiative to sign up for it and put it on their schedule. All right, because most of the meetings are during community period. And sure, you know, they might want to go get a snack or hang out with their buddies or maybe print a paper or finish some homework. That's all well and good, but you're not going to be going to these meetings every day. All right, maybe once, twice a week, depending on the school. We try to stagger them in a certain way, so you're not going to be going to 5 in a week. All right, very important that they go to do that. Sometimes they'll be asked to fill out, and then the rep will have them fill out an information card so they can take that back, so they can see who showed up, so they can see who demonstrated interest. All right, not always easy to get on campus, but you can always, at 10 a.m. on any given day at Xavier High School, meet with a college admissions rep. All right. So I'd say take a look at that. If not today, maybe tomorrow or over the weekend, see where they are. And again, like I said a few times before, feel free to reach out to us to chat about whatever you want. If your son had Mr. Temkin as his guidance counselor, we will now serve as your son's counselor. And whatever you need, we'll do our best to help him where he is. All right. All right. So part of what we send to colleges is a school profile. It gives a snapshot, a very large snapshot, actually. It gives a lot of information about who we are as an institution academically, what's important to us, where our values are, the admission statements included, list of colleges our students have been through. But there's also very important academic information. So you know, our senior class size is 229. All right. Total number of students. Colleges want to know that. We grade on a 100-point scale, not a 4.0 scale. We don't use A, B, C, and D to calculate our numerical grade. It's a 100-point scale. His cumulative 6-semester GPA is unweighted. We do not weight any grades here, regardless of honors or AP status. All right. We do not rank you. Most high schools do not use a ranking system anymore. That's the thing of the distant past. And our school CEEB code, 334145. That's how we're known to colleges and universities. That's our SAT code, our ACT code. And if your son is ever, or you've ever gone onto a college website and they've asked for the CEEB code, that'll generate Xavier's data in there very quickly and specifically. All right. And that's all contained on our school profile, so a college has easy access to it. All right. Who feels this is a complicated process, very involved? Show of hands. Of course, right? It's actually, I'm going to break it down to the most basic components of it. Your son sends in his application and the application fee. We send in our school part. All right, we'll talk about that in a minute. But your son's application consists of a few things. It's usually going to be the Common App application. They've all established a Common App account with us in group last year. All right. They can add schools to that list at any time. I wouldn't suggest using that as a scratch paper type of list. You want to make sure that that's a little bit more of a clean list. You can add schools and take them off at any time, but that's his responsibility to do that. All right. Has anybody seen their son's Common App yet? All right. Have them. It's another thing we'll encourage. Show your parents the Common App. All right. Just to keep you engaged and involved and you know what's going on. All the SUNY schools, the State University of New York schools, except for one of the colleges, FIT, and then the community colleges, will accept the Common App. There's no difference. They're not going to review it any differently. It's actually easier because you've already completed an application, so you don't have to double up and do another one for SUNY. All right. a university that you may have been in touch with, maybe you took a tour, maybe you signed up for a mailing list, maybe your son met a rep here. They may send you a FAST app or a priority app waiving the fee for the application. That's fine. There's really no advantage to using their application over the Common App unless they waive the fee. And hey, why not save $50 to $95, whatever the cost is, all right? So you can use that app. It's going to be a little more work, but it's usually a little more simplified version of that application. So if you get one of those, you can use it. You don't have to, but you can. We'll make sure that they list their application type in Naviance, which is not something you necessarily have to worry about. We'll do that with them in groups so everything lines up correctly with our records. There's something called the coalition application. It's actually a much longer name than that. It's I won't say it's an alternative to the Common App, but there are a number of schools that use it, schools whose names you know well. If your son wants to use that instead, it's just another application that he can use for college. The Common App will allow you to apply to up to 20 schools. Talk about this in a minute. We do not suggest you apply to 20 schools. All right. But if that strange scenario plays itself out, we can help you find alternatives, potentially using the coalition. The CUNY app, the city universities, Hunter, Baruch, Queens, Brooklyn, City College, a whole bunch of other great schools. That is a completely separate application from anything else you'll do. You can apply to up to 6 CUNY schools on their application for one fee. You don't have to, but you can. You can apply to 1, you can apply to 3, you can apply to 6. Still going to cost you $65 or $70. And you send that application in and it goes to whatever CUNY schools you want to apply to. We'll address that later on in group because their deadline isn't till after most private schools or even public larger universities. But if you get that in by December 1st, you'll be in good shape. The SUNY app, I mentioned that before. Easier to use the Common App, but if you need to use the SUNY app, we can direct your son on how to do that. All right. Standardized test scores. We, Xavier High School, do not send those on your son's behalf. All right. That's the responsibility of the student and ultimately you if you're paying the fee to send the scores. Some colleges will allow you to self-report your scores if you choose to send them. There's a test optional option that you might have heard of that we'll cover a little bit later in a couple of slides. But that is the responsibility of the student to send your scores if you choose to do so. If you choose to do so, all right? You would do that through his College Board account or his ACT account, and there is a fee to send scores. We don't advise that you, the College Board, when you register for a test, will give you the option to list 4 schools, 4 colleges to send your scores to for free as part of your registration fee at the onset of registration or even a little bit before the test. We don't suggest you do that because we believe that you should see your scores and make a decision based on whether you're going to send them or not, knowing what your scores are. So it might cost you an extra $40, $50, but in the end, that might be the right decision in the bigger picture. All right. You can self-report your scores in a few ways, but there's an area on the Common App that if you choose to send your scores, that you can list your SAT scores and you can use your 2 scores that you like best from each section. All right. So that's your son's responsibility. Send in your application, pay for the application fee, send in your test scores if you'd like to. All right. It's not that simple. There's a lot more to the application, but in its most basic form, that's what you're going to do. My responsibility, our responsibility, Xavier's responsibility. All right. We're going to send a number of things to every school your son applies to. And when he requests transcripts, that triggers an alert on our end that your son needs his school documents sent to whatever school he lists on his transcript request through Naviance. Another thing we'll do with them in group guidance, all right? So as you can see, there's a process for everything. There's a process to request transcripts, a process to request letters of recommendation, and we do that along a steady path with them. Have no fear, we've got them covered, all right? And if they don't do what they're supposed to do, we chase them down and make sure that they do. All right, so we're going to send your son's transcript. All right, that's his 6th semester transcript at first with his cumulative 6th semester GPA. All right, they've all received a copy of that, I believe. Their 5 semester GPA, I believe they received their 6th semester transcript with a list of your son's senior year courses. All right, the transcript will have the overall GPA. It'll have a GPA per year freshman through freshman, sophomore, and junior year, and he'll have the final grade in each class that he's taken. So if he had one bad quarter, maybe didn't do so well in the final, that won't show up, all right? It's the final grade for each class that the schools will see, all right? We'll also send a school profile. Again, that's the data sheet the colleges use when they have his transcript in one hand, they have the profile in the next. They'll review his academic record and they'll use the profile to see how he fits in the grand scheme of the student body of the senior class at Xavier High School. All right. After, I'll go to the 7th semester transcript. So we're going to send another transcript to every college he applies to on his behalf after we're done with the first term. All right. So after first quarter and second quarter are in the books, we'll create a new 7th semester GPA to reflect his senior year grades. And we'll send that to all colleges he applies to in late January, early February. Now, our first quarter ends mid-November. I believe they receive report cards in mid-November. I'd have to look to specific date. We don't automatically send those grades, even if he's applied early action or early decision, whereas a deadline of November 1st, give or take 15 days, all right? We will ask every senior in the class, we'll ask you, if you'd like us to send your first quarter grades, and if you do, because you like your grades, maybe you've maintained your GPA, maybe you've gone up, we're happy to send those new grades. They won't be calculated in your overall GPA, but they will be a reflection of the work you've done in your senior year courses, if you want. Not every college requires that if you apply early action or early decision, all right? But if you've done well, we can do that. Maybe you didn't have a great first quarter. No problem, we won't send them. Some schools will ask for those first quarter grades if you apply early. We have a good idea of who those schools are, and we kind of just gauge who they are and how well your son has done before we make that decision, before you make that decision to send them. We may recommend that you send them if you've done really well. All right. Official transcripts. Yep. So we'll have official transcripts ready by early October. You're not going to find a deadline before October 15th, typically. Very rarely will you have a college application deadline prior to October 15th. And there are a handful of schools that have an early action or early decision deadline of October 14th. Most deadlines you'll see for an early application period are November 1st or November 15th. And that's our goal as we work through group. All right. We're also going to submit your son's teacher recommendations. What we do in group on Naviance, you can see if you've done the correct work, the correct way for asking for a teacher recommendation, the teacher's name will be in Naviance in a certain spot that's kind of hard to find. So we direct your son there, make sure that the teacher's name is in there. And if they are, they're good. What we tell them in junior year, after you ask for a teacher rec, you fill out the form and submit it, you're done. You're done. Parents and students are always like, should I ask Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so for my recommendation letter? No, you will not see a recommendation letter. You're signing a waiver saying, I trust the people writing for me. I don't need to see it. And that's an act of trust and good faith that the college appreciates, that we appreciate. Teachers write great recs for your kids. Counselors write original letter. Everyone gets an original letter. There's no cut and paste. That would be a disservice to you and your sons. And we take a lot of pride in writing those letters, and we believe that they help support them in good ways. So we send the counselor letter, the teacher letter, transcripts, school profile, and a secondary school report that all the colleges will want to see too, with a little more academic information that helps them make their decisions. Requesting transcripts on Naviance, we walk them through that process in group. We ask that you don't do that, all right, because they need to, on their Naviance account, I'm sure you could, but we really need them to be the front and center with this process. You can help them along. You can nudge them along. You can sit them in front of the computer with the mouse in their hand and get them to do it if you want. You know your son better than anybody. We can help with that, but they need to know where they're requesting their transcripts so he and I, who could potentially see each other every day, are on the same page. All right. Now, building your college list. I'm going to tell you a story, and I hope you take it as a tall tale, but it's true. I had a kid last year to apply to over 50 colleges. I was not happy. And not because it's more work, because it's not. I just click a button and send the stuff. But how are you going to make a decision in the end? when you've applied to 50 colleges? He got into like 30 of them. How do you make that decision? He did, obviously, but he was stressed out till February. You know, you could potentially be done with this, or a majority of it, by November 1st. And he was still working deep into February on some of these things. It wasn't a wise move. We advise him against it, but ultimately it's your decision. But if you want to take a healthy approach to this, we suggest that 9 to 12 colleges is a good range. Do you have to apply to that many? No. Nope. If you've crafted your list, and we believe that you have a good number of schools that you'll be able to be admitted to based on past history of Xavier guys and your grades, your coursework, your scores, we can feel comfortable with that. All right. I talked a little bit about the early deadlines. October 15th is probably the earliest you'll see, into December 15th for some schools. Again, most schools will have early deadlines, early action, early decision, November 1st and November 15th. Regular decision deadlines, which I'd say half applications that go out from Xavier are in the regular decision range. Typically January 1st or very early January, depending if that date falls on the weekend or not, through March 1st. But the advice we would give is, if your son is done with his application and he's read it through and you're ready to send it, go ahead and send it. You don't have to hold on to it. If it makes you feel better to wait till close to the deadline, that's fine. Never suggest applying on the deadline day. Some of you will, some of you may have to, but the information superhighway and the Common App gets very jammed up on November 1st. All right. Halloween sounds good. Submit your application, go get your trick or treating going. All right. When you're creating your list, there's a lot of terminology. You could use reach, you could use far reach, you could use safety, you could use target. We need to know what your list is well before the deadline for transcript processing purposes. Also to make sure that your son has schools that if he doesn't get into his top 10, you know, who are those other two? You know, you want to reach for the stars, go for it. We'll support you in whatever school you want to apply to, regardless of your grades or scores. You know, your dream is to apply to Notre Dame with your 70 flat average. Well, it's your application fee. Let's give it a shot, right? But we need to make sure that you have a backup plan, all right? And not only do you have schools that you're pretty sure you're going to get into, but you're going to have to be able to like those schools once you get there. You don't want to wind up, the saddest thing is when a kid goes for pie in the sky and knows he's going to get into a couple of schools and just in the end, like, oh man, I didn't think that would happen. Well, you didn't craft your list as well as you should or could have. All right. You have to like every school. You shouldn't apply to a school that you'll never go to because you think you're going to get a nice scholarship and play that off against another school. No. I mean, you could. Doesn't always work that way, but you're going to have to like the school you go to, right? That's the goal. You don't want to apply to a school thinking, oh, I'm going to transfer the next year. Life doesn't always work out that way. You got to like where you're going to go at first. All right. And another thing to consider is the affordability factor. If you want to make sure that you have an affordable college you can go away to, if you live in the state of New York, you're in good shape because there are a lot of SUNY options out there that are great. You know, some of them have specific areas of study that they focus on. Some are bigger university centers. Some are 20,000 plus. Some are under 3,000. All right. Lots of great SUNY options. The SUNY website is chock full of information. They're always hosting information sessions online and in the city. So if you want to find out more information about SUNY without traveling the entire state of New York, going to one of those sessions would be a good idea. You're probably not going to pay over $30,000 if you get no aid to go to a SUNY. All right. Same thing with the CUNYs, the city schools. I believe the tuition is $8,000 or so, maybe a little under. And those are great options if you want to stay home. They're competitive. A lot of them are competitive. So the sooner you apply to those, the better. But again, we'll address that in group. In terms of your chances of receiving merit aid and how you play the application process, if your son is has amazing grades in the high 90s and you apply to a school that isn't as hard to get into, you may be considered for a much higher scholarship than you would for a Georgetown or an Ivy League school or Duke or some school that might not give you any academic money because all of their incoming class fits that profile of highest achieving student. All right. That could be a path you take. We're not a school where if you get into Harvard, but you want to go to, I don't know, University of Scranton, we would totally support you if that's your path you want to take. All right. And we're not paying for Harvard for you, but Scranton might take care of your full tuition if you get into there. All right. Miss anything else in there? Also, anybody looked at the scattergrams on Naviance for each school and where your son fits? He's that little blue head circle. All right. If you find that he fits in a whole bunch of the green, probably safe bet that he's got a good chance to get in there. If he's in a lot of red, but near one green, that's usually a kid who maybe was a recruited athlete or applied to a special program. If you want to know whether your kid is that kid, it could be the green among the red, give us a buzz and we'll let you know. Send them to us and we'll help you figure that part out. All right, scattergrams don't tell the full tale, but they give you a pretty good indication of whether your son has a chance of being admitted to that school or not. All right, and then fit over name. You know, if what you're looking for is a school with a name brand and you want to put that big old sticker on the back of your car window, by all means, follow your heart and believe in your dreams and go for it. If that's a great fit for your son academically, if they have the program of study he wants, if he feels like, wow, these are my people, this is my community, this is where I want to go, great. And if it works for you and your family based on distance and cost, those three factors have to work for you. You know, you want to be excited about going somewhere. And it's usually not based on the name, it's about what's going on campus in their community and in their classrooms. All right. So fit is big. You might not know the perfect fit until closer to the deadline when you have to decide on May 1st. Let this process breathe a little bit. Let's get through the work. And once you know where you're in, you can really decide where your next home will be for the next 4 years or so. And I'm done talking. There we go. We're gonna take all questions in the end. If you want to write it down, we'll definitely hit you up then. Thank you.
Okay, so a bit more about application types. Raise your hand if you've heard of early applications. Yes, 2 minutes ago. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about who it might be a best fit for. And we actually reviewed this with your sons in group this week, or they will get it tomorrow in group. Excuse me while I adjust my scooter so that I don't fall over. Okay. So you can read what's on the screen behind me, but there are two types of early admission plans, right? One is early action and one is early decision. I think the best analogy here is like human relationship. If you are ready to get married and make the commitment to one school, early decision is best for your son, right? And that can have its advantages. A lot of schools admit a lot more students, sometimes of a little bit lower profile in early decision, but you really have to have visited that school and make sure that you know it's the one. You can't just blindly enter into a marriage, right? This is not an arranged marriage situation. Whereas early action, you're kind of saying, I like you, but I also like 4 other people / colleges, and I want to explore it a little bit more. And I don't have to make a decision right away. I can wait until May 1st when I get my regular admission decisions as well. I can weigh financial aid packages and scholarships and really make a more informed decision. One thing I want to note is that for early action, a lot of scholarships that are institutional scholarships will want you to apply by the early action deadline. So if your son's applying to a school, say Vanderbilt, and they have, if you want to apply for a lot of their merit money, they're going to want you to submit by November 1st, right? So those are things to keep in mind as you keep your eye on deadlines. If they have the schools entered in the Common App and they have their admission plan in there, that is not completely fool safe, right? So you need to make sure that also you're aware of when the scholarship deadlines are. I know this sounds stressful, but guess what? We have about a month and a half before that. So you have time to check it out, look at it together on one of those scheduled nights, of course, that Ms. Petty mentioned, right? Also, like, if you have questions about if that would be the best strategy for your son, we are happy to help out. We want to make sure at the end of the day that every single student has options. right? That's what we're in this for. And so if you ever have a doubt or question, please reach out to us. Do not sit there in the dark wondering, am I doing the right thing or not? Transcript requests and nominations. I believe Mr. Gibbons went over this fairly thoroughly. However, I just want to add an additional note, which is sometimes your sons are going to get an email saying they're missing something. Do not spiral. That's normal. The processing times can be really slow, especially around the deadlines. Okay. However, one great thing to ask him is, well, did you request your transcript in Naviance? Right? If you ask him that and he's not sure, then you two can go into Naviance and look together and see if that request was made. Again, please, 2 weeks in advance when you're positive that you're going to apply. I get all the fun slides. Standardized testing. Some of these deadlines to sign up for the test have passed, but the main goal of this slide is just to give you information, as well as to let you know that some schools will have a hard deadline by which they will stop accepting test scores, right? So a lot of schools, it will say on their website, please, like the latest SAT we will accept is November, and they won't accept any new testing after that. Because now so many schools are test optional, we are always happy as well to consult on if it's the best strategy for your son to submit their scores or not. You can see the thing that's up here in bold. This actually is very important. It sounds a little bit like a scam, right? Do not pay to rush your scores. We promise you. It actually doesn't speed it up. I like to pay extra just to ease my anxiety, but we'd be foolish to, so please do not, okay? Just regular payment and you'll be fine. Test optional. So you can see here like a few scenarios as to when it may be good or not to submit tests. But honestly, I have to tell you, we are now in the third cycle of test optional admissions for most institutions. What does that mean? That means students who have done really well on the SAT or ACT are the ones who are submitting their scores. So when you're looking at the website and you see the average is 1550, that's grossly inflated, right? Because again, the very top test takers are submitting their scores, and then that is what is showing up as the average. So that's not really what everyone out there is doing. That is not average by any means. 1300 is not average by any means. Like, let's be very clear, right? So it may be that submitting testing is just not the best strategy, given the people who are submitting testing are really submitting extremely high scores. But that's a good place to start and check and see what the average is. Again, the scattergrams are helpful to kind of see the range of testing that was submitted, right? But when in doubt, and this is always going to be the answer, feel free to reach out to us. And then there's a little bit on here about test blind. That really means test blind. Last year, I read applications for the University of California at Berkeley. We did not see a single test score. And it was just not something that we saw. We did not see the student's race or ethnicity. We did not see the student's gender. We did not see the student's test scores. One other thing I want you to think about, we've talked a lot about SAT and ACT, but also we encourage your sons to include their AP scores on their Common App if they've scored a 4 or a 5 in most instances. Sometimes, depending on the school, a 3, but in general, always a 4 or 5. That's a helpful thing to go on there. That tells the college, look, this student is taking rigorous courses and they're being well prepared for it. So it's a little pat on all of our backs. A little bit more about test optional. Some of it I've already covered. I do want to note that Georgetown is requiring scores this year, and that is a very popular school at Xavier. And the Florida State schools are as well. There may be other schools that your son is interested in that are requiring them, but honestly, for the most part, every single school has the test optional option.
wheel out of here.
Thanks.
How's everybody doing? Still with us? All right, cool. So Mr. Gibbons talked briefly about this, but letters of recommendation, right? So when we're talking about letters of recommendation and you're thinking, oh man, who's going to be writing my son's counselor rec? How are they going to know he was commuting an hour and a half to and from school every day, getting home at 8 p.m.? You know, he's spending his nights working on the train, doing homework, only to get home and do more homework or work on a project. That's where we come in. The counselors and the college counselors partner together. Your brag sheets, your students' brag sheets, all shed light into who he is as a person. And this is where the character piece comes in, right? So when colleges are making decisions, they want to take your son in the context of the school, but also in the context of his life. If your son was going through something, you know, any sort of hardships, right? Whether that be academic, personal, social, mental, colleges want to know that. And colleges want to know that because there are humans on the other side of this desk reading these applications. It's easy to feel like a numbers game, but I can tell you on numerous accounts, admissions counselors, professionals have reached out to us to kind of say, hey, I read this in your letter of recommendation. I just want to get a little bit more context. And we're happy to do that. So that's something just to keep in mind, that these letters really touch on who your son is as a person. If you're worried that I'm writing your son's letter and I don't know him at all, don't panic. One, I've gotten to know them pretty well, if I do say so myself. And two, if not, we will work together with the counselors. We'll work together with you to make sure that your son is best served in the light that he needs to be put in. Because, and like Ms. Raker said, all of these are unique. There's no cookie cutter kind of copy and paste thing. As a former student, I get a test that means a lot to me. So I want to make sure that your sons, and we want to make sure that your sons are best set up for that. So that's the counselor. The teacher letter of recommendation. All of your sons should have asked already for a teacher rec. If they haven't yet, don't panic. We will, again, take care of that. If you suddenly realize, oh man, Boston College requires 2 letters of recommendation, we'll handle that as well. We will teach and show your son where to find, hey, is this required? If a school says 1 is required and they'll take 3 optional letters, that is not an invitation to ask 4 teachers for a letter of recommendation, right? So some of our junior teachers are writing, 30 plus letters, and that's a lot. So we want to be careful not to overtax them, but also we don't want to overtax the admissions people who are reading thousands of applications, right? So if they say optional, it truly means optional. Now, if we have 2 of them, because one of the other schools were required, we'll gladly send that over and they'll read and deduce which one they want to use, or maybe they'll read both. Outside recommenders, that's something your son handles on his own. We do not send those personally, but we can show him how to add a recommender to the Common App, or we can help him find the admissions emails that would be sent. Really, if it's a coach, if it's a clergy member, if it's a boss, if it's somebody you may know who's connected to the school, does that make a difference? I'm not sure. If you guys feel more comfortable sending it, we will happily show you how. And again, the signed records release forms, they can't see their letters of rec. A lot of them will ask to. Trust that we are serving your sons well, and trust that that I'm reading them. I could say for a fact that I'm making sure that we're sending positive things. I'm rereading ours. We want to help. That's the bottom line. At the end of the day, we all want to help your sons. All right, so that's enough about recs. Costs, ooh, even better. Application costs. We talked about this a little bit. Again, 20 schools is a ridiculous, it's a lot of schools to apply to. It's also a costly expense. If you're running yourself up, and because you guys will probably be paying for this unless you're making your sons pay, in which case, more power to you. That'll treat them, I'm sure their list would get smaller, but $50 is like the average, but it'll go upwards to $85. Some schools will waive those fees. A lot of Jesuit friends of ours will help us out if the student is interested in the school. St. Joe's University in Philly has long been partnered with us, where if your son attends the representative meeting, they might waive the fee. That is not an invitation to apply to St. Joe's just because, but if your son is interested, that is something that I know in the past they've done. So shameless plug for one more reason for visiting, coming to see the reps when they come in. There is a chance that may happen. Again, the reasons are here, costly. Some colleges will offer free priority stuff. Again, that's the other reason. If you wanted to apply through the website, it's strictly up to you guys. We'll support you every step of the way. The admissions fees, the SAT, ACT fees, again, don't rush your scores. So. Financial aid, more fun stuff. We are not going to get into the weeds of financial aid right now. There is a great presentation that we will be hosting October 13th at 6 p.m. that will take an in-depth dive into financial aid. The FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, it opens on October 1st, and it'll be the prior tax year. So your 2021 tax returns is a good place to start with the FAFSA. It's .gov, not .net, not .com. If it's .com or .net, don't put your information in, please. So be careful. The CSS profile, if you hate the FAFSA, you're going to hate the CSS profile even more for those who have already filled it out. It is a deep dive into your finances, asking you questions you never thought you'd have to answer before, but have your information at hand ready to go. And we can best assist you through that process, answer some of your questions on October 13th, more in depth, because you'll find that a lot of parents have the same questions. Now, there may be specific ones. If you own businesses and stuff like that, might be better to talk to your accountant, but that's for another time. Every school has what's called a net price calculator on their website. So as Ms. Fraker was talking about, making that early decision proposal, right? You want to marry this school. You have to consider the financial implications that may or may not come with that school. So going to the school's website, whether that's early decision or early action, they all have this website tool called the net price calculator. You'll answer a few questions and they'll give you a rough estimate of what you may or may not expect if you file for financial aid. So every school is required to have that. There's also the FAFSA forecaster. That's on FAFSA.gov's website. All right. And now I think we're going to open the floor to Q&A. Up top is our emails and our extensions. If you guys want to take a picture of that, if you guys, again, we'll send this out. But I'll walk around with the microphone. That way the folks at home can hear us, because last time we did that, we were kind of like reiterating the questions through the microphone. So if you guys have a question here, feel free to raise your hand. Mr. Kuroga is going to monitor the chat from the virtual side of things. So we'll throw your questions out there to everyone after that. All right.
So Buckley will be the MC. One thing I forgot to mention, because I've been here a long time, I've assumed some of the sub roles of a college counselor. If your son is interested in playing a sport in college, I can help you navigate the NCAA process, which is really very simple in the end. If your son's interested in the military academy, it would speak to me as well. Anything else? I think that's it
I think that's it too.
for now. Yes.
I'm going to start with a question that we got from Zoom, which is, will we give individual advice on scores? And yes, absolutely. If you did not get the impression that we are here to support in any way, I hope you get it now, because I'm actually saying we are here to support in every way. So please do reach out. I am a firm believer in communication. I think that is going to be the key to success for all of us, as we will probably not see each other much beyond tonight and then celebrating at graduation, right? Which is quite a ways away. So please do reach out if you need support in anything. I have to say, because I'm new, I do not yet know how to access my voicemail, so I prefer email, but I hope to figure that out pretty soon. So if you have a question, Mr. Buckley will come around with a microphone. Please speak into it so that our folks online can hear.
When our sons were freshmen, we attended a college session. And one of the things they mentioned at the time was that they would give them a ranking of the rigor of the coursework. Does that still happen? It used to be 1 to 4. How can you find out? I remember that
Sure. So what you're referring to is part of the secondary school report. We give them a rating on their positive character traits. And again, we speak very highly of your sons. No need to worry there. And we also, we have a rubric that we use, that we all get together and make sure, we double check our own work to determine the rigor of their curriculum. We have, as you all know, we have a policy that limits the number of AP and honors courses your son can take. And that's really to help them maintain a healthy academic balance. It's not to prevent anything or, not give them an opportunity. It's hard to do well here. And you guys know this better than anyone. And if you get into a cycle where I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do more, it's not good. It turns out to be the opposite of what you were going for. So the rating scale is something that is not arbitrary. We have a system and we let the colleges know where your son's curriculum ranks in terms of rigor, whether it's basic college prep or most rigorous. And there are five, I haven't looked at the sheet, 5 or 6 ratings. Ask me, I'll tell you.
Get my steps in.
You want to borrow the scooter?
Hi, quick question on the scattergrams, which are really helpful in Naviance. I found them to be very helpful. But that draws from what kind of information that our sons put in initially? Is it their ACT?
Very good question. Very good. How is the data in the scattergram populated?
Yeah.
Right? So it is Xavier specific data. So those are the admissions results of our students since 2004. Now, that would be crazy to look at that scattergram. It'd be a mess of green. It'd be like finger paint, right? So we use a 4-year window of data for each class year because things change. Northeastern used to be a school that mere mortals could get into. Now it's a wing and a prayer. I'm only kidding. Apply to Northeastern if you like. It's a wonderful place. But they become much more competitive. So the data from 2004 would not be useful to the class of 2023. So we use a 4-year window after each graduating class goes. And it's, again, Xavier-specific data, a student's GPA, SAT scores, or you could switch to an ACT scale. And then it's your son's 6th semester GPA and his super score for the SAT.
And can you change it?
You can't change the data.
You can't change the SAT
view.
or ACT?
We can-
Oh, you can change the view. You can change the view ACT versus SAT, yes.
Okay. In Naviance?
Yes,
ourselves.
correct.
Okay.
And if your son has yet to take the SAT, it's based on their PSAT scores, their position on the scattergram. Good question.
We have
And staying with that same question, then how do you handle the boys who went SAT optional, they did test optional? Those scores are in there or not in there?
So the question was for those on Zoom, how does scattergrams treat students who applied test optional? How does that show up on the scattergrams? Yeah.
Feel free.
So that shows up on the scattergrams. That's one of the nuancy things now that everything is test optional. So you can't be sure. We're starting to keep data in the office, so we're going to be able to answer those questions. But you don't know if that kid submitted or not. So you can ask us though.
In a couple of schools we visited, we saw that kids have GPAs above a 4.0. It's not something I ever had to worry about. Just curious as to how that works.
So the question was GPAs above a 4.0. Why was not the question, but why? And how is that handled in the process? Every college has its own way of looking at GPA as an equalizer. So they will take your son's transcript and essentially recalculate it so that everyone is on whatever scale that they're using. So there's no advantage to having a 5.33 GPA. Good for you, but it's all going to turn out the same in the wash once they mix it in their own way and put it back out again.
Yeah, that can be very intimidating.
There are exactly 266 days till graduation, for those who don't know, but I do. My question is, can you talk a little bit about the advantage, if any, about going early decision 2? Because I know a lot of kids put in early decision 1, they get wiped out, they cry, And then there's this, on other schools or even the potential their school they want to go to, there's an option of early decision 2. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So early decision 2 is, it's not a second chance at your early decision 1 school. So that's done. However, it's a fresh start at early decision, and most of the schools that we've spoken to say it's really the same. So there's no disadvantage in doing ED2. It's extra time if you're not quite ready, if you haven't, fallen completely in love yet and you're not sure you want to get married, but maybe by January, that you do. It's just a really nice option timing wise. And what it really gives you, if you're into the early decision game, it gives you 2 chances. So if you have 2 schools that you really like, you can do one. And if it doesn't go your way, you have a second chance. Does that answer your question? Typically, yeah. And Mr. Gibbons was just saying too, the other thing is you would get your first semester grades to be finished. So that gives you, if you're having a really good year, that could help.
Is the rating a substitute for weighing the GPA? Because I want to know what's the purpose of taking an honors class. You're not going to be, it's not going to come.
Sure.
Can you repeat the question too?
So the question was, what's the value of taking an honors class in terms of your GPA if it's not going to reflect in a weighted grade? Huge fat. So I'm going to give you an example. Years ago, when I first started doing this as a little college counselor in the mid 2000s, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was kind of figuring it out as I went. Our valedictorian applied to Villanova. Villanova, great school. He had 1 honors course, no AP courses on his transcript. So he had a thin academic rigor, was straight denied from Villanova with a 97 plus average. That's not something you see very often. What hurt him in the process is that he had done well academically through his entire time here, but chose not to challenge himself by taking AP and honors classes, which he was eligible to take. They considered it, he wasn't looking for a challenge. We want to see students who are eligible. Listen, if your son had I don't know, he had an 80 in algebra and he didn't get into a higher level math course till senior year, that's okay. He wasn't ready to take that honors class. He probably would have been struggling and in a worse position, all right? But if you meet the prerequisites and you're approved to take an honors and AP course, the rigor of your curriculum, kind of like the first question we had earlier, how do you, we give a ranking of the rigor of your student's curriculum based on the honors and AP courses he's taken. If he doesn't take a rigorous course load and he has grades in the 90s and above in whatever subject that is, and colleges will see through our school profile that they would have been eligible to take that, they're going to assume you didn't try. And if that's the assumption, they are going to question his desire to excel at their university if they're highly competitive. So that's, we've been around a long time. This is 175th year, right? Colleges know who Xavier is. They know how we conduct our personal business, our spiritual business, our religious business, our service business, and especially our academic standards. They know them. They know that we don't give fluffy grades. And they know that if a student has done honors level well with honors and AP classes, this is probably a kid I want at my school. And hopefully that works out.
Hi, thank you for explaining the weighted, the process that is new with the test optional and the fact that those scores do look higher than maybe reality. And I appreciate you inviting us to ask the question, but is there a rule of thumb yet? I mean, it's new, it's a new concept. So is there a rule of thumb when you should hold back and when you should go forward?
Yeah.
You repeat the question.
So the question is there a rule of thumb as to when you would submit or not submit SAT scores? And, the way that we've been handling it is really on a school by school basis with the guys. So, if you have let's say a 1300, there may be some schools you're applying to where that score helps you. And there may be some schools where it doesn't help you as much. And so you can pick and choose where you send and where you don't send. So it really is sort of there is no rule of thumb. It's the answer. It's the simple answer. Yeah.
If we're not sure, of the answer for you guys. We have no problem calling a college up and being like, hey, let me pose a hypothetical to you, right? I have a student here with a 92 average and a blank score. What do you think? We've built relationships long enough with these counselors to get that kind of answer more often than not. So that's why we always say, come see us when those kind of conversations arise.
I'm going to just share a few questions from our friends on Zoom. Hey, everyone. A couple requests to have a session on how to use Naviance. Actually, your sons can help you here, right? So again, when you're thinking about sitting down that 1 or 2 times a week, have them show you Naviance, have them show you the rep visits that are upcoming and what ones they've signed up for. That can be an exciting way to think about what questions they might want to ask the school and how to put their best foot forward. People are wondering, how do visits work? Are they one-on-one interviews? Great question. The visits are typically about 15 to 25 students in a room. That's a lot of people, right? Again, your son is setting themselves up for success. 1, by enrolling at Xavier, thank you. 2, by choosing to attend the visit and really being engaged and paying attention. Every visit that I've been in, every single young man in the room has sat there and really asked thoughtful questions and been engaged and nodding and all of the good signs, which is great. And we do have a few schools that will do interview days. We will make sure that those are highlighted in the headmaster's note. That's going to be our primary way of streamlining communication. So please do keep an eye on that. If for some reason you're not getting that, that would be a great thing to tell us after this is done. So they are really mostly just information sessions. And then how do they show interest? If, for example, your son wants to go to a visit and it's full, 1, we recommend that he still go. There may be room in the room, so still show up at the beginning of the period. If there's an empty seat, please come in. But 2, really sign up for the email listservs. No one wants more email, but this is going to be the only time I do recommend it. Sign up for the email listservs of the schools they're really interested in. That already counts as showing interest. Schools track everything. They know when your son opens an email. They know how long they've spent on the email, right? It's crazy, but it's part of the game that we're all playing. So do open the emails, read what they're saying, take action when you need to. Another way to show interest is to visit the campus. That is not feasible for all of us, most of us really. So again, yes, please visit some of your top schools and you'll have another chance in April after they're accepted, but really visiting is incredibly critical if you can make it happen for the top schools. If you need ways to strategize doing that, again, we are going to be a resource for you. If applying early action, will the teacher rec be submitted or do they have to notify them? Yes, we are going to submit the recommendations. How do we know that we need to submit the recommendations? You win. Yes, you're in. Okay. And the answer there for people at home is that you request the transcript in Naviance. Okay. 2 weeks before. I think I've answered most of these. Can they get help with their final essay for grammar and spelling? Grammarly is a very good resource. I do not want to read an essay that I don't understand exactly what word you meant. So please use Grammarly. It's online. And then, yes, we're happy to look at the essay once it's a little bit cleaned up and we can understand the core idea and support in that way. Does test optional look bad? No. Any other questions? We would love to give you the rest of your night back.
We know that's hard to believe, but it's true. It's true. It can help sometimes.
Early decision, that's like you do one and that's it, right? And if you,
Correct.
that means like you apply once and then you're done, like you can't apply anywhere else. How does that work? What's the commitment that you're signing up for?
You can only pick one school for early decision. However, you could simultaneously do early action applications. However, if you're admitted to that early decision school, you need to withdraw your applications from all the other schools. That's really important to give everyone else a fair shot. You don't want to be taking everyone else's spot. So one early decision school. If that school accepts you, great. it's over. If that school defers you, that means you're in the regular admission pool, and then you could potentially try again with another school for early decision too, right?
What
If-
you decide you don't want to go to that school, like last second?
After you're in.
So I'm going to tell you a little story.
Please.
I might live in New Jersey, but I'm from Queens. So here's the story. The kid who applied to 50 schools, it was actually 53, actually applied early decision to a school and was accepted. Now, part of our advisement, when you want to apply early decision, we will all speak to the parent as well as the student, because the kid doesn't understand what $86,000 a year is. They just don't. And, we understand that. We do. But they really don't. So part of the process of early decision is you're signing an agreement, you, the parent, the kid is signing the agreement, and we are signing the agreement saying we have vetted with you, the parent and the student, that they understand what early decision means. Now, certain schools are very generous with their aid. Some schools are not. So the student that I just told you about, nice kid, a little confused on that. Advisement was done, but when he received his financial aid package, he was given $60-something thousand in loans. Loans are considered financial aid by colleges, and he was going to have to pay $20-something thousand out of pocket if he wanted to live on campus. He was like, "They didn't give me anything." I'm like, "I told you they weren't going to give you anything, because I've been doing this a long time and I've seen what they do and how they do it based on what your parents' income is when you're an only child, and your parents make a certain amount of money." Now, living in New York is more expensive than everywhere else. We know this, but that doesn't really matter that much, a little bit, but not that much. So he decided to pull his ED application out and withdraw his application after he'd been accepted ED. That looks very bad for the rest of Xavier for the next however many years the person reading our application is. That's why we're very intent on making sure that this is a good fit school-wise and good fit financial-wise. If you go on the FAFSA forecaster and on the FAFSA website, and the net price calculator after you leave here today for a particular school, that will give you not a perfect estimate of what you can expect to pay out of pocket and what your family contribution will be, but it will give you a pretty good ballpark estimate, give or take a couple of grand maybe. And that's based on how they assess need and their academic scholarships, and using both those tools together will give you an idea of what you should expect to pay at that particular school. Until you've done those two things, you should not click submit on ED. And until you tell me you've done those things, I won't sign my part for the benefit of all Xavier kind.
And
So,
aside from the bad image for Xavier, I
Mhm.
get that.
Sure.
Introduce that. Am I signing a commitment that says, if my son gets in, I'm committing to pay X thousand a year?
you're committing to attend the university.
Okay.
What the financial aid package will be will really vary to the individual school. NYU might not give you that much. They may, though. It depends on what your FAFSA and your CSS profile tell them. A school like Fairfield, Jesuit school, we have a good relationship with, has an early decision plan. I can tell you based on your grades and your scores and the history of what we know that you will probably get this much in merit-based grant money to defer the cost. Does that work for you? And that's where we can come in with our experience and help guide you along that way. So ED could be great. It could be very scary as well.
You can also talk to the admissions counselor ahead of time saying, "Hey, I'm planning on ED. Here's some of my, here's what I'm working with. Do you think you could put me in touch with somebody from financial aid to see if this is feasible?" It never hurts to ask that question. And we got that. We're gonna take.
This is going to be the last question. We will stick around in separate corners, find your college counselor. I'm going to be the closest to here. Guess why? All right. But we want to respect your time and just thank you all so much for coming. And we know the cookies aren't dinner, so you probably have somewhere to go. Last question.
So just really quickly, we're obviously getting emails from the schools we visited, and we got an email saying, "Hey, come in and interview with us." What do you recommend if it's a school that my son is interested in? What is that about?
I mean, you know your son best. If you think he's going to shine in an interview, and probably you have been preparing for that your whole life, right? Then yes, he should do it. If he needs support in preparing, definitely practice the questions at home, have him practice with a friend, have him practice with someone he doesn't know. Right? So a lot of my friends will ask me to help their kids prepare for interviews because they know I'm strict and I don't know a lot of their kids that well. And it's super helpful. So think about someone who can help prepare them. Yep. All right. Thank you all so much for coming. Have a good night and get home safe. Sure.